Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are cracking open a story that is, on the surface, deceptively simple.
Oh, very much so.
But when you actually get into it, you find this incredibly complex framework of, well, loyalty, sacrifice, marketing, of all things,
Marketing is a huge part of it.
and the very specific mechanics of survival in what we can probably call a post-war American barn.
It's a truly remarkable literary case study. I mean, you have this immediate life or death crisis that's completely fueled by farming economics.
Right.
And it's resolved by this completely unprecedented alliance between a desperate animal and a creature of, frankly, supreme intellect.
And our sources for this, they meticulously document this surprising chain of, you could almost call them accidents, and the meticulous planning that was required to turn a condemned pig into a county-wide phenomenon.
A local celebrity.
A celebrity, exactly.
Yeah.
The stakes are set in the very first moments of the narrative, and it establishes what is really the foundational trauma of this entire deep dive.
Yeah.
The whole crisis is right there in one simple, terrifying question.
Where's Papa going with that axe?
Chilling.
It immediately catapults us into the essential conflict. So what we're doing today is charting the journey of Wilbur, a pig who was initially considered just a piece of disposable livestock, a runt.
Born small and weak and therefore?
Deemed expendable. Our mission is to analyze every single step of his transformation to show how friendship and perception, really, saved him from that untimely death and turned him into what he became.
Zuckerman's famous pig. So let's unpack this. We're not just, summarizing a plot here. We are dissecting the logic of the miracle.
And we have to begin with Fern Arable, because she is, in a very real sense, the first revolutionary in this story. She's the one who introduces the concept of moral philosophy into the farmyard economy.
It's such a radical act for an 8-year-old. When her mother explains that the runt has to be done away with, Fern doesn't just object. The text says she shrieked.
It's visceral.
Yes, she identifies it as the most terrible case of injustice she had ever encountered. It's this immediate, almost instinctual recognition of unfairness.
And her argument is incredibly compelling because it's based entirely on intrinsic value. It completely ignores market value.
Right. She physically hangs on to the axe, demanding to know if her father would have killed her if she'd been born very small. Such a powerful, direct comparison.
And Mr. Arable, he tries to use, taxonomy and tradition as a defense, right? He says, a little girl's one thing, a little runty pig is another.
But Fern just cuts right through that. She argues that the pig couldn't help being born small. She forces him to confront the fundamental unfairness that's inherent in judging a living creature based on its initial weakness.
It's the sheer emotional force of her argument that wins the day. The sources note a queer look came over his face. The injustice was felt so strongly by his daughter that he was almost brought to tears himself.
So his surrender is an emotional concession then. It's not an economic one.
Not at all. He lets her raise the pig on a bottle, but he gives her a warning that becomes, well, prophetic. He says she'll see what trouble a pig can be.
And for a while, Fern just completely embraces that trouble. Wilbur's early life becomes this period of pure, intensive dependence. It's a complete 180 from his intended fate.
Absolutely. He starts his life in a box near the kitchen stove, being fed warm milk from a baby's nursing bottle.
So domesticated.
Fern treats him like an absolute infant. She uses bibs, she notes his long lashes, she pushes him around in a doll carriage. This close physical and emotional bond is, I think, vital for his later psychological foundation.
And you can see his growth tracked by his accommodations. He moves from the kitchen to the woodshed, and then finally outdoors under an apple tree when he was just 2 weeks old.
Right.
I love that detail where Fern was enchanted, just watching him poke his head into the straw and disappear, creating a tunnel for warmth and for safety.
That straw tunnel detail is so important. It symbolizes the safe space that Fern has created for him, but it also, it hints at his fundamental pig nature. He's a burrower, seeking comfort and warmth.
But as the sources clearly indicate, this old domestic idol is just not financially sustainable. Time marches on, and Wilbur, who is now a 5-week-old spring pig, is growing. His appetite is increasing, exponentially. The sources make it very clear that Mr. Arable was not willing to keep him fed any longer.
And this brings us right back to the farm economics. He was sold for only $6.
Just $6.
And when you put that in context, it just reinforces his status as a throwaway. $6 for a growing pig, even a runt, is a remarkably low price. It suggests Mr. Arable was still trying to divest himself of the trouble that Fern had imposed on him.
While still making sure he was taken care of by family by sending him to his uncle.
Exactly. And his new home is a crucial part of the story. The barn cellar, under the custody of Uncle Homer Zuckerman. He is moved into the manure pile, specifically underneath the cows.
Now, this is a detail that I think modern readers might see as cruel or, filthy, but the sources frame it very differently.
It is entirely practical. You have to remember the exothermic reality of barn life. A composting manure pile generates a significant amount of heat. The sources describe it as pleasantly warm and comfortable.
So it's an engineering solution.
It's an engineering solution using natural farm waste. Pigs need warmth, especially in a cold cellar. It's not just a plot point, it's a fact of agricultural life.
So he has warmth and food, but what he loses is the intimacy of that first relationship. Fern visits daily, sitting on the milking stool.
But you can't take him on walks anymore.
No walks, no rides, no swimming. The relationship shifts from this dependent nurturing to more of an observational devotion. And that really sets the stage for the rising tide of loneliness he starts to experience.
And that loneliness is the catalyst for the entire next act of the story. By the time Wilbur is almost 2 months old, it's not just boredom, it's existential despair.
It really is. He finds life meaningless, concluding, "I'm tired of living."
That's a heavy thought for a young pig.
It is. He's tired of digging, tired of lying down, he's tired of standing still. His routine has become a prison. And who steps in to counsel him in this moment of crisis?
The fast-talking goose.
The goose is the barnyard's, chief proponent of abstract liberty?
I like that. She is the agent of reckless advice, encouraging him to escape through a loose board. And her promise is painted in these broad, hedonistic strokes. Root up everything, eat grass, look for corn, run all over, skip and dance, jump and prance.
It sounds fantastic on paper. But the sources make it very clear that this idealistic picture of freedom lasts about as long as it takes Wilbur to push that loose board aside.
He gets that initial joy, right? Jumping, twirling, rooting in the orchard. But then the chaos of non-human freedom hits him. The hullabaloo, as the book calls it, descends.
The human collective chase begins. Mr. and Mrs. Zuckerman, Lurvy, the spaniel, they're all shouting, and then the animals just compound the panic with all this contradictory advice.
It's a complete sensory overload. The goose is yelling, "Run downhill, make for the woods," while the sheep are crying, "Run uphill."
He can't synthesize any of it. He's dazed, he's frightened, he's overwhelmed. The reality of freedom is loud and terrifying and confusing, and it forces him to choose between that chaos and comfort.
And his choice tells us everything we need to know about Wilbur's character at this stage. He is lured back by the sheer, undeniable smell of warm slops.
And we get this wonderful, detailed list of ingredients.
We do. Warm milk, potato skins, wheat middlings, Kellogg's cornflakes, and a popover. It's a feast.
The goose is the voice of revolutionary caution, right? She's yelling, "It's the old pail trick, Wilbur! Don't fall for it!"
But he doesn't care. The comfort, the warmth, the food, it's just too appealing. He chooses stability and a full stomach over abstract liberty.
And he concludes he is too young to go out into the world alone.
And this moment is the pivot point. He sacrifices freedom for security, which ensures that he's present for the miracle that will eventually save him.
But that security doesn't stop the loneliness from coming back, does it? The very next day, it's cold rain. His whole detailed schedule is ruined.
He had his day planned out so meticulously. Breakfast, talk with Templeton, nap, dig a trench, watch flies. The schedule collapsing under the rain, it just mirrors his psychological state perfectly.
The search for a friend becomes desperate.
Yeah.
The goose is just sitting on her 7 successful eggs, and she just dismisses him. Then he tries the lamb.
And the lamb delivers this philosophical gut punch.
He really does.
Yeah.
The lamb dismisses him completely, saying pigs mean less than nothing to him. And this is where Wilbur, despite his despair, shows a little bit of that early intellectual spark.
He pushes back, doesn't he?
He does. He pushes back with this logical, almost mathematical argument against the limits of nothingness. He says, nothing is absolutely the limit of nothingness. It's the lowest you can go. How can something be less than nothing?
It's a wonderful moment. The pig, in the middle of an existential crisis, tries to apply pure reason to social rejection.
And the lamb's response is just so dismissive. "Oh, be quiet. Go play by yourself. I don't play with pigs." It shuts down the whole intellectual debate and just reinforces the barnyard hierarchy.
Pigs are at the bottom of the social totem pole.
And then there's Templeton, the rat, the third pillar of barnyard cynicism.
Ah, Templeton! He's introduced as a glutton and a hoarder, only interested in eating, gnawing, spying, and hiding in his complex little tunnel system. He just flat out refuses to play.
This collective rejection, it leads directly to a physical health crisis.
Hmm.
Wilbur stops eating because what he wants is love and a friend.
And the humans notice, which confirms his low status is now affecting his market value.
Right. So Lurvy is instructed to give him 2 spoonfuls of sulfur and molasses, a practical, if slightly archaic, medical intervention for, what, pig depression?
Pretty much. And this is the lowest point of his despair. He's alone, he's rejected, he's medicated. And out of that darkness, this thin, pleasant voice cuts through the gloom.
Offering salvation. Do you want a friend, Wilbur? I'll be a friend to you.
The promise is made, and the entire trajectory of the story changes in that one moment.
So when morning arrives, Wilbur finally meets his friend. And she is Charlotte A. Cavatica, introduced with his striking combination of high intellect and terrifying pragmatism.
Right from the start, her greeting is salutations, which she immediately explains is her fancy way of saying hello.
She is a creature of 8-legged precision, yes. But let's just pause on the immediate horror she elicits in him.
Well, yeah. Wilbur watches her catch, wrap, and then bite a fly. He is absolutely horrified by the mechanics of her existence.
He is. He confronts her immediately about her fierce, brutal, scheming, bloodthirsty nature.
And she doesn't flinch. She defends herself, explaining that she's a trapper by lineage and she has to drink blood to live. How do you reconcile that duality, the sophisticated vocabulary versus the cold reality of her profession?
That's the question.
And this is where the story gets truly complex. Charlotte embodies the utilitarian side of nature. She kills for survival, but she justifies it with an ecological defense. She argues her consumption of bugs prevents them from multiplying and destroying the earth.
She's a necessary predator, a stabilizing force in the ecosystem.
Exactly. So she is both a cold-blooded killer and the most intellectual being in the barn.
And Wilbur, who desperately wants to maintain this new friendship, he hesitantly agrees that her web might be a good thing after all. He accepts the necessary cruelty in exchange for companionship.
And that acceptance is immediately put to the test. Before they can even settle into their friendship, the old sheep delivers the cold, hard, economic truth.
The old sheep is the grim prophet of the barn, isn't she? She just lays out the bad news so matter-of-factly. Wilbur is being fattened for slaughter around Christmas time.
And this is not an accident, it's an established system. The old sheep identifies it as a regular conspiracy involving Lurvy, Zuckerman, and even Fern's father, John Arable.
This shatters Wilbur's world. It sends him into absolute hysterics, the kind of emotional breakdown that led to the sulfur and molasses earlier.
But Charlotte is immune to hysteria. She calls the plan the dirtiest trick I ever heard of and vows instantly, "You shall not die, I am going to save you."
This promise is the moment her sophisticated intellect is fully directed toward a selfless action.
And critically, she frames her help with practical requirements. She demands Wilbur stop his childish hysterics, gain weight by eating every scrap, chew thoroughly, and leave just enough for Templeton.
Necessary partner later on.
Well, a very necessary partner. Her command is simple: keep fit and don't lose your nerve. The entire plan hinges not on magic, but on Wilbur's physical health and his emotional control.
So now we have to shift focus to the human side of this equation. Because while Charlotte is plotting the mechanics of the miracle, Fern is relaying these incredible detailed stories to her mother about life in the barnyard.
The 7 goslings hatching, Templeton taking the dud egg.
Even stories about Charlotte's cousin who caught a fish, and another one who was an aeronaut.
And Mrs. Arable, the skeptical adult, is deeply concerned. She believes Fern is inventing things and worries about her spending so much time alone in the barn cellar. She calls it not normal.
She holds on to the dogma that animals don't talk.
She does. So Mrs. Arable takes her daughter to see Dr. Dorian, and this conversation is one of the most philosophically profound moments in the entire source material.
Dr. Dorian becomes the unexpected voice of reason and really the defense of imagination.
Exactly. He completely dismisses Mrs. Arable's worries. He highlights that the web itself is a profound, nonverbal miracle. Spiders spin these intricate, geometrically perfect structures without any instructions from anybody.
So he's suggesting that children, because they pay better attention, might actually hear things that adults dismiss or simply miss entirely.
That's his argument, that Fern's perception isn't a symptom of mental illness, but maybe a symptom of greater awareness. He suggests perhaps if people talked less, animals would talk more.
And this legitimizes Fern's reality. It gives the miracle the essential condition it needs to proceed. The humans aren't going to intervene and destroy the conspiracy.
Now, validated by Dr. Dorian, the conspiracy moves forward. But Wilbur, still a bit self-centered, he attempts to help by spinning his own web.
Which provides the technical deep dive we need into Charlotte's biology. Wilbur boasts he can do it, but Charlotte has to coach him. She instructs him to make an attachment with your spinnerets, hurl yourself into space, and let out a drag line.
And this is where that biological contrast is just so stark. Charlotte, the expert, describes using her 7 sections of leg, the coxa, trochanter, femur, patella, tibia, metatarsus, and tartus, to navigate and weave.
And she explains that she uses 2 different kinds of silk, right?
She does. The wet, sticky spiral threads that catch insects, and then the dry, double-strength threads for the structural frame and, critically, for the written words.
And Wilbur, lacking those specific biological machines, the spinnerets, he just lands with a thud and realizes he cannot perform the magic that's required.
Which leads Charlotte to conclude that the way to save Wilbur is to capitalize on human intellectual simplicity. As she says, the way to save Wilbur's life is to play a trick on Zuckerman. People are not as smart as bugs.
But the whole plan nearly ends just seconds later when Avery, Fern's brother, armed with a stick and a candy box, tries to capture Charlotte.
It's sheer magnificent fate that intervenes here. Avery falls and he crushes Templeton's stashed rotten goose egg. The sources describe a dull explosion and a horrible, unbearable smell that drives the children away and saves Charlotte.
An accidental, foul-smelling bomb.
Pretty much. And Templeton, the deeply cynical anti-hero, he can't resist boasting that saving the egg was worth it. He says, it pays to save things.
So this accident validates his entire philosophy of hoarding and self-interest, which ironically serves the greatest act of selfless friendship.
Exactly. The stage is now set for the first message. Charlotte decides on the word, some pig. And she uses that double dry thread specifically so the structural silk doesn't capture bugs and ruin the display.
Luthie's discovery in the fog is the perfect dramatic moment. He sees the words, drops to his knees, and whispers a short prayer. He's trembling. It immediately moves the event from a strange occurrence to a certified miracle.
And Mr. Zuckerman's interpretation confirms Charlotte's theory about human readiness to believe. He insists a miracle has happened on this farm, proving Wilbur is completely out of the ordinary.
He even dismisses his wife's initial, very logical observation that it might just be an unusual spider.
He does. He says, it's the pig that's unusual. It says so right there in the middle of the web.
This is such a vital analytical point. Zuckerman chooses to believe the advertising is proof of the product, not the skill of the artist.
And the impact is countywide. It disrupts the farm's entire economy.
The news spreads like wildfire. Zuckerman dresses in his best suit, he visits the minister, and visitors start pouring in, arriving in vehicles that really represent the epitome of 1950s American automotive ambition.
Fords, Studebakers, DeSotos, Oldsmobiles. The detail about the cars is crucial for context. The DeSotos with gyromatic transmissions and the Oldsmobiles with rocket engines were cutting-edge symbols of technological aspiration and consumer confidence.
So you're saying these are people who are ready to believe in the magic of advertising and technology?
They are completely predisposed to believing in miracles presented in a commercial format. If a car can have a rocket engine, why can't a spider write?
And the practical effect is immediate. Farm work is neglected, no blackberry jam is made, the corn isn't hoed, Wilbur's feedings increase from 3 to 4 a day. The pig, now famous, is simply too valuable to risk.
But the miracle has to be maintained. Charlotte calls a meeting because, as she notes, people are getting sick of reading the words, some pig. They need new material.
New copy.
New ad copy, exactly. The new messages require new vocabulary, which brings us right back to the rat.
And the old sheep, the master manipulator, convinces Templeton to undertake the dangerous journey to the dump. And she does it by appealing only to Templeton's baser instincts.
She warns him that if Wilbur dies, the trough will be empty, and Templeton will starve and grow so thin that we can look right through your stomach.
This threat to his physical comfort and his food supply is the only thing that moves Templeton.
It cements his role as the necessary, unpleasant partner in the miracle, motivated entirely by self-preservation, which in turn ensures Wilbur's survival.
So with Templeton reluctantly on board, Charlotte begins her next masterpiece, and she's utilizing all of her technical expertise to ensure the words stand out.
Her internal monologue during the weaving process gives us that deep technical detail. She methodically lists the 7 sections of her leg and refers to the intense focus required as real leg work. She's simultaneously performing a biological imperative and an artistic endeavor.
And the second word to appear is terrific. Wilbur blushes, noting that he's just about average.
But Charlotte delivers the ultimate advertising lesson. People believe almost anything they see in print.
This is the core theme of perception versus reality, isn't it?
Mm.
It doesn't matter if Wilbur is terrific. It just matters that the public believes he is.
And the human reaction to terrific is instant and tangible. Zuckerman is convinced he has a wondrous pig. He immediately orders clean straw bedding, discontinuing the use of cow manure.
And he commissions the ultimate status symbol. A green crate with gold letters proclaiming, Zuckerman's famous pig. The pig is now officially a brand.
He requires the trappings of celebrity. And Templeton's trips to the dump are essential for the vocabulary. He brings back the word crunchy,
Which Charlotte wisely rejects because it dangerously evokes crisp, crunchy bacon and tasty ham.
a brilliant rejection. He then brings preshrunk, which is also dismissed because they want Zuckerman to think Wilbur is nicely filled out, not shrunk up.
The words have to reinforce a positive consumer image. Always.
Always. Finally, he brings the blue and white cardboard strip from a soap ad with new radiant action.
This is just a perfect piece of mid-century advertising copy. It's vague, it's glamorous, and it promises transformation.
And Wilbur now has to match the marketing. He's instructed to perform flips and twists to appear radiant.
He throws himself into it with a will, blinking his long eyelashes and doing a backflip with a half-twist. He genuinely starts to feel radiant. The pig is acting his way into salvation.
But just as Wilbur is basking in his manufactured fame, the narrative darkens. The atmospheric shift is signaled by the crickets. Their sad, monotonous song warns that summer is over and gone, signaling Charlotte's biological deadline.
She reveals that she's busy with her magnum opus, her great work, which is egg-laying. She needs to build her masterpiece, a sack containing 514 eggs.
She describes herself as versatile but exhausted. She is implying that she is prioritizing her biological duty over her artistic one, knowing she likely won't survive the season.
And so the preparations for the fair begin. This is the grand debut of the brand.
Mrs. Zuckerman takes extraordinary measures to make sure the product is pristine. She recalls her grandmother's technique, a buttermilk bath.
That detail is wonderful, scrubbing away the mud and the slop crust with buttermilk, making him pure white and smooth as silk. It's an almost religious ritual of cleansing in preparation for display.
To get to the fair, Templeton has to be manipulated again. The old sheep paints the fair as a hedonistic rat's paradise of spilled, ripening food peanut butter, frozen custard dribblings, candied apples.
An appeal to gluttony, and it works.
It works. It successfully recruits the rat and Charlotte as stowaways.
And once they arrive, Wilbur meets his formidable competition. Uncle, an enormous pig in the next pen.
Charlotte immediately assesses the rival. She sees him as noisy, too familiar, prone to weak jokes, but she admits his sheer size makes him a hard pig to beat.
Size and weight are the traditional metrics of success. Wilbur has to win on fame and perception.
Which is why Templeton brings back the final clipping, the last word of the rescue, humble. Charlotte understands its dual strategic meaning. It means not proud, which plays into the narrative of the miraculous pig remaining grounded.
And it also means near the ground, a subtle reference to the earth.
Exactly. She weaves it, and she declares it's the last word she will ever write.
The moment of judgment arrives, and it brings immediate despair. Templeton spies that dreadful blue tag on Uncle's pen. First prize.
And Wilbur, the Zuckermans, the Arables, they all just sink into silence. They believe the miracle has failed.
This despair is the perfect setup for the twist, which is announced over the loudspeaker. A special award for Mr. Zuckerman's famous pig.
They didn't win the standard prize. They won a superior award based on reputation and celebrity.
And the grandstand speech is the final validation of Charlotte's marketing genius. The speaker praises the pig's smoothness, his whiteness, noting the buttermilk, and his general radiance.
And he emphasizes that supernatural forces must be involved. Crucially, the speaker denies the spider wrote the words, claiming spiders cannot write.
The irony is just delicious. They accept the miracle, but they attribute it to the supernatural, completely ignoring the mechanical scientific genius right in front of them.
The pig is praised for being humble, smooth, and radiant, the exact qualities that Charlotte manufactured for him.
The stress of the performance and the overwhelming praise is just too much for Wilbur. He collapses. He faints away.
The crisis is immediate. The speaker declares they can't give a prize to a dead pig. This is the moment Templeton, motivated purely by the survival of his food source, performs his selfless by self-interest act.
He bites Wilbur's tail.
He bites his tail, reviving him instantly to accept the bronze medal and the $25. The gluttonous rat is the unsung hero of the triumph.
So Wilbur is saved, he's famous, he's secure, but Charlotte, having finished her true magnum opus, that peach-colored waterproof sack with 514 eggs, she's languishing. She's expended her life force.
And this leads to their final, profoundly analytical conversation. Wilbur asks why she did all of this for him, this act of such complete, selfless devotion.
And Charlotte's response is the philosophical heart of the entire story.
She replies, "You have been my friend. I wove my webs for you because I liked you. By helping you, perhaps I was trying to lift up my life a trifle." That phrase, "lift up my life a trifle," is so vital. It reframes the entire effort not as altruism, but as self-actualization through selfless action.
She elevated her own existence.
From being a necessary, bloodthirsty trapper to being a writer, an artist, and a devoted friend, her sacrifice gave her life deeper meaning.
She announces she is done for and cannot return to the barn. And Wilbur, in agony, realizes his mission has to shift. He must save her children.
His actions are immediate and decisive. He forces Templeton out of the straw and uses the only currency the rat understands. He bribes him with an exclusive deal.
First and choicest access to the slops. Forever.
Forever. And Templeton, bloated and groaning from his fair feast, agrees. He uses his ugly teeth to snip the egg sac free.
Wilbur carefully carries the sack on his tongue. It's the only safe way to transport the precious, fragile cargo. He winks at Charlotte, a final shared moment of understanding, and then he's shoved into the crate.
And Charlotte waves a final leg and dies the next day at the deserted fairgrounds.
Wilbur brings the eggs home, and he guards them fiercely. He wears the medal, and he scoops out a special place in the manure pile, using that exothermic warmth, the source of his initial barnyard comfort, and his own breath to keep the sack warm.
It's now his most important object.
And Templeton. He absolutely thrives on this new transactional arrangement. He grows gigantic and fatter than any rat you ever saw from enjoying Wilbur's leftovers first.
The old sheep observes that he'd live longer if he ate less, to which Templeton sneers, "Who wants to live forever?"
It's the perfect cynical counterpoint to Charlotte's sacrifice. Templeton, motivated purely by gluttony, is rewarded with size and longevity. He embodies this dark, practical inverse of Charlotte's selflessness.
He is the necessary evil that survives and flourishes.
Spring arrives. The snows melt, and the 514 tiny spiders emerge, looking just like your mother, gray with a black stripe. Wilbur is ecstatic. He performs a celebratory backflip.
But the triumph is brief. A warm updraft enters the barn, and the biological imperative takes over. The majority of the spiders, known as aeronauts, they spin silk balloons and sail away.
We take to the breeze, we go as we please. They're seeking their own territory.
This ecological necessity is devastating for Wilbur. He feels completely deserted. He learned the value of friendship only to watch the tangible legacy of his friend drift away on the wind.
But Charlotte's legacy does endure. 3 tiny spiders remain. Joy, Iranian named for Charlotte's middle initial, A, and Nellie, and they pledge their friendship to Wilbur.
It ensures that while Charlotte is irreplaceable, the love of spiders remains a constant in his life.
Wilbur lives a long, cherished life, secured by his fame. The sources note that Fern eventually grows up. She becomes interested in Henry Fussy and stops her regular visits.
The human devotion changes, but the animal devotion remains.
And the final description of his life in the barn is the ultimate synthesis of the story. It captures the entire ecosystem.
The garrulous geese, the changing seasons, the nearness of rats, the sameness of sheep, the love of spiders, the smell of manure, and the glory of everything.
It's an acknowledgement that the sublime, like love, and the mundane, like manure, are all intrinsically linked in the complex beauty of existence.
He never forgets Charlotte. While he loves her children and their children, she remains in a class by herself. She was a true friend and, most importantly, a good writer.
So when we synthesize the knowledge we've gained here, we're moving beyond a simple plot summation. We see this profound balance between the human willingness to believe in a supernatural marketing miracle.
And animal survival being achieved through sheer cunning and profound, selfless sacrifice.
The story elevates the mundane details, the exothermic heat of the manure, the careful separation of dry and sticky silk, the specific language of consumer advertising into the actual mechanisms of salvation.
Right. It proves that the glory of existence is inseparable from the messy reality of life on the farm.
So what stands out, and what we want to leave you with, is the incredible fragility of destiny that allowed this entire miracle to succeed.
It hinged on a series of unpredictable, seemingly worthless accidents. A random loose board, a runty pig prioritizing warm slops over freedom.
And, perhaps most improbably, a rotten goose egg saving the life of the only creature capable of writing a word.
If life and death, if fame and survival were determined by such a fragile, highly specific sequence of accidents, what does this tell you about the nature of destiny and the unexpected, highly conditional sources and costs of true devotion?
Something to think about the next time you look at a barnyard or a perfect spider's web.